Hey, so what did you think of Hocus Pocus 2? Now this video is going to have a few spoilers, so I'm really sorry about that. There's not really any way around it. If I'm just going to talk honestly about what I felt about Hocus Pocus 2, I'm afraid if you haven't already watched it, you're not going to be part of the conversation, so you may as well click away now or, visit something boring. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. And now, let's talk about it. So it opens with three kids, sort of. They're the younger Sanderson sisters from way back in history. And actually these kids, these actors, really nail the mannerisms, I think. They do a fantastic job. Especially Winnie, who's got this sort of weird overbite, and Mary, who I noticed actually, if you look really closely, the child Mary does that, whereas Kathy Najimy does that, or vice versa. So one of them sort of has this wonky mouth that way, and the other one has it that way. But it's not consistent, and that sort of bothered me a little bit. Now I might be wrong, maybe I'm misremembering it, but I think that's a small detail that's kind of important to know. Sarah, she wasn't as flirty as in the first film, but then she was very, very young until she got older, obviously. But even when she's older, I don't think the character's as flirty as she was the first time round. And I think that misses out on something. It's unfortunate, but there we are. Generally speaking, I thought the film was really, really good, and I'd really love to know what you guys think of it too. As they sort of go on through, it sort of follows this 16-year-old girl through to womanhood, I suppose. There are different cameos, I guess, from different people. The mayor doesn't really do very much for most of it, but he does at least realise that he's in a kids' movie, whereas I think a lot of them are trying to be a bit more grown up. Now I got this feeling of like Herbie Halloween from a film I watched, I think it was last year, with Adam Sandler in it, and it kind of tries to do that, but doesn't kind of hit that mark. It's like some are too childish, some are a little bit too adult. There are some funny bits, like Mary riding two Roomba vacuum robotic cleaners, which I think was quite funny, but they also almost come to life as well, and have like their own personality, which I think is also hilarious. But I did think that there was a little bit of confusion there. So for example, I don't know whether I just drifted off for a moment, but when they trap the Sanderson sisters in a circle of salt, it's not very clear where they are when they do that. And when they then come home, and it happens that it's actually in the garage, and then the father opens the garage door, the door comes up, and there they are sort of trapped in this circle. It's not really clear, like, how did they get there? And maybe I missed something, maybe it was perfectly clear, and it just should have, I should have just noticed that in the first instance. I don't know. But yeah, that was weird for me. Just weird. Now, as you'd expect, it's been almost 30 years. It's been 29 years. I don't know quite why they didn't wait for the 30th anniversary, but maybe they just wanted to make a bit of money. The fact that it's 30 years since the original film, almost, you would expect that the special effects would be that much better. But they're not ridiculously better, I don't think. There are some parts in it that just look really fake. Other parts look really good. The magic spells in particular, I think, look quite convincing. Following on from Harry Potter with all the sort of shiny lights, I guess. But I wasn't terribly impressed with some of the flying scenes in particular. They look just green screen.
We must fly! They were the only rubies left!
Now, back 29 years ago, they had wires and they painted them out later, which I think looked a lot more convincing because you could see the billowing and all of that sort of stuff, and they were sort of almost really flying, obviously using wires, but doing that physical thing as opposed to digital, it just didn't really work, in my opinion. I don't know, prove me wrong. Let me know what you think down in the comments. On the whole, I thought it was a really good film. The song piece in the middle, trying to recreate the magic, pardon the pun, of the first movie, I think there was quite a lot of that. I think there was quite a lot of that sort of nostalgia trying to play to the old audience, which I don't necessarily think worked. I think the reviews from the first movie were not very good when it first came out, and I'm hoping that that is going to be the similar sort of thing with this movie, that it will just grow on us over time, like the first movie has. It's had 29 years to grow on us. Maybe watching it every year for the last 29 years gives us time to think fondly of it. And I wonder whether that's the same with Hocus Pocus 2. But I do think that there are some things with that film that are almost irredeemably strange. The unexplained aging of the Sanderson sisters, I think, is a little bit odd, but they just don't mention it. Sarah Jessica Parker in particular, trying to look like she's in her 20s, and she's clearly not. I think that's a little bit odd. Kathy Najimy having clearly lost a huge amount of weight, so good on her, but it's not explained. So I don't quite know what's going on with all of that. And then there's some retconning going on as well. So in the first movie, they say about how they got the book from the devil himself, but in this movie you get the origin story of where that book came from, and it actually came from their mother. Then you've got the whole story of their mother, and in the first movie they talk about a pie that the mother makes.
Mummy scorpion pie. Mother.
And in this movie it's quite clear that she's not that sort of mother. Yeah, it just seems like you've got two different movies that are trying to sort of match up, but in order to make the new gags work, the old ones have got to die, and I think that's a real shame, especially for a sequel. So on the whole, I really enjoyed it, but let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you again next time with some more magical awesomeness. Please do click that like button, subscribe, ding that bell, become members, all the links are down there. Thank you to my subscribers. Catch up with me on social media, and I'll see you next time with some more magical awesomeness. But until next time, as always,
Stay magical.